Peace, beautiful being. Welcome back to Ascension Conversation, Books and Conversations. My name is Cherise from Collective Light, and we are here with our reading of the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. I am playing around with different times to go live, so I hope that you're able to join me today. And if you're listening later on, please feel free to leave anything in the comments that calls to you and resonates with you. Also, please don't forget to subscribe if this reading resonates with you and if you would like to keep in touch and see every time that we go live every single Sunday. So, I'm going to be honest today, I am kind of in a low energy, but I got my flower crown on today to kind of up my spirits. Yes, thank you to people that are in poetry and those that share their crafts. I'm so grateful to be in those spaces with other creatives who make beautiful things such as this. So definitely bring some light into my life today. So, for this book, we are reading the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. And if this is your first time joining, welcome. I always leave the book in the description box so that you can easily find the PDF and you can read along with me. And you can also read it on your own time if that feels good for you. I also leave in the description box all of the chapters prior, all the video readings that we did before together. So feel free to go back to those after this and catch up on wherever you may have missed. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we finished at chapter 31. So if you want to pull up the PDF, we're on page 44, starting at chapter 32. And just a brief summary of what we read last time. Jesus was still in India and he was still teaching what he knew from his heart. And a lot of the Brahmin priests at the time did not like what he was teaching because his teachings were reaching the collective in that community on a very large scale that was starting to test the Brahms in their authenticity, in the sense of they were very wealth-based when it came to their perspectives rather than service-based. And Jesus was letting the people know that they did not necessarily even need the priests in order to grow closer to God. And with that led to the priests actually hiring someone to want to kill Jesus. And so with that, he decides to flee to Nepal with all of his newfound wisdom that he gained while spending the time that he did with the Brahms. So we're going into the end of this section, but beginning with Jesus in Nepal. So starting at chapter 32, the summary for that. Jesus and Bharata. Together, they read the sacred books. Jesus takes exception to the Buddhist doctrine of evolution and reveals the true origin of man. Meets Vidyapati, who becomes his co-laborer. Among the Buddhist priests was one who saw a lofty wisdom in the words that Jesus spoke. It was Bharata Arabo. Together, Jesus and Bharata read the Jewish Psalms and prophets, read the Vedas, the Avesta, and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Bharata said, "Man is the marvel of the universe. He is part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and he was a bit of formless substance in the molds of time, and then a protoplast. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectness. The protoplast evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. Now man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience. And mind is often manifest in fleshy form, and in the form best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm, or bird, or beast, or man. The time will come when everything of life will be evolved unto the state of perfect man. And after man is man in perfectness, he will evolve to higher forms of life. And Jesus said, Barata Arabo, who taught you this, that mind, which is the man, may manifest in flesh of beast or bird or creeping thing? Barata said, from times which man remembers, not our priests have told us so, and so we know. And Jesus said, enlightened Arabo, are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows not by being told? Man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Arabo, when you were ape or bird or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, you do not know, you simply guess. Regard not, then, what any man has said. Let us forget the flesh and go with mind into the land of fleshless things. Mind never does forget. And backward through the ages, master minds can trace themselves, and thus they know. Time never was when man was not. That which begins will have an end. If man was not, the time will come when he will not exist. From God's own record book, we read, the triune God breathed forth, and 7 spirits stood before his face. The Hebrews call these 7 spirits Elohim. And these are they who, in their boundless power, created everything that is or was. These spirits of the triune God moved on the face of boundless space, and 7 ethers were, and every ether had its form of life. These forms of life were but the thoughts of God, clothed in the substance of their ether planes. Men call these ether planes the planes of protoplast, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and of cherubim. These planes, with all their teeming thoughts of God, are never seen by eyes of man in flesh. They are composed of substance far too fine for fleshy eyes to see, and still they constitute the soul of things. And with the eyes of soul, all creatures see these ether planes and all forms of life. Because all forms of life on every plane are thoughts of God, all creatures think, and every creature is possessed of will, and in its measure has the power to choose. And in their native planes, all creatures are supplied with nourishment from the ethers of their planes. And so it was with every living thing, until the will became a sluggish will. And then the ethers of the protoplast, the earth, the plant, the beast, the man began to vibrate very slow. The ethers all became more dense, and all the creatures of these planes were clothed with coarser garbs, the garbs of flesh, which men can see, and thus this coarser manifest, which men call physical, appeared. And this is what is called the fall of man. But man fell not alone, for protoplast and earth and plant and beast were all included in the fall. The angels and the cherubim fell not. Their wills were ever strong, and so they held the ethers of their planes in harmony with God. Now, when the ethers reached the rate of atmosphere, and all the creatures of these planes must get their food from atmosphere, the conflict came, and that which the finite man has called survival of the best became the law. The stronger ate the bodies of the weaker manifests. And here is where the carnal law of evolution had its rise. And now man, in his utter shamelessness, strikes down and eats the beasts. The beast consumes the The plant thrives on the earth absorbs the protoplast. In yonder kingdom of the soul, this carnal evolution is not known, and the great work of master minds is to restore the heritage of man, to bring him back to his estate that he has lost, when he again will live upon the ethers of his native plane. The thoughts of God change not. The manifests of life on every plane unfold into perfection of their kind. And as the thoughts of God can never die, there is no death to any being of the seven ethers, of the seven spirits of the triune God. And so on. So an earth is never plant, a beast or bird or creeping thing is never man, and man is not and cannot be a beast or bird or creeping thing. The time will come when all these seven manifests will be absorbed, and man and beast and plant and earth and protoplast will be redeemed. Bharata was amazed. The wisdom of the Jewish sage was a revelation unto him. Now, Vidyapati, wisest of the Indian sages, chief of temple Kapavistu, heard Bharata speak to Jesus of the origin of man, and heard the answer of the Hebrew prophet. And he said, "You priests of Kapavista, hear me speak. We stand today upon a crest of time. 6 times ago, a master soul was born who gave a glory light to man, and now a master sage stands here in temple Kapavistu. This Hebrew prophet is the rising star of wisdom deified. He brings to us a knowledge of the secret things of God, and all the world will hear his words, will heed his words, and glorify his name. You priests of temple Kapavistu, stay. Be still and listen when he speaks. He is the living oracle of God." And all the priests gave thanks and praised the Buddha of enlightenment. Chapter 32. So this chapter was pretty heavy. It went deep into the creation of the physical planes that we live in now. And when Jesus met Bharata, Bharata was among the Buddhist priests. And the Buddhist priests at that time were taught that they could be having past lives as animals, beasts, birds of the air. And Jesus' response was first to ask if this priest actually had experience remembering this past life for themselves, or was this something that was only told to them and they made it fact just because it was what was taught and told. And then he goes on to explain that when life was created, which was a story he actually told in a previous chapter, that God breathed forth and 7 spirits were created, which were the Elohim, and the Elohim are the ones who created everything that we have. And so these spirits formed planes of existence that was the planes of the protoplast, earth, plant, beast, man, angel, and cherubim. So each of these beings had their own plane of existence, and we as man have our own plane. So we, being man, can never be animal, beast, that was his response. And that these planes were in the ethers and all lived according to specific laws, and they all lived according to a less dense form. And then when we as man started to evolve, we men are the mind. So mind wanted to experience itself, and flesh was created because of that. So when you hear people say like we are consciousness in human form, that's pretty much true, because the mind, God's mind, wanted to express itself in all its forms, and we are the result of that. And we were also given free will and mind, consciousness, in order to continue to create and to continue to evolve into what Jesus claims as the perfect man. And once we evolve into that, we'll evolve even higher. And that when the mind became physical, all of the planes of existence, well, 5 out of the 7 planes of existence fell with it into density. So they were saying that the beast, the protoplast, the man, earth, and the birds all became dense and flesh. But the angels and the cherubim did not, because they continued to uphold what they knew about their plane and lived in harmony with God in that plane. And so that's why, and that those ethers and those planes natively are not seen by the eyes of flesh. So that's why we don't see angels in their native state, is what he's saying here. And that's also where carnal law of evolution rose. And now man came into a space of evolving into a lower density of eating beast, and beast eats the plant, and plants, the earth eats or absorbs the protoplast. And so it's become this like survival of the fittest through our own evolution over time. And he says at the end of the chapter that the time will come when the 7 manifests will be absorbed and everything will be redeemed. So if we think about like in Revelation, we're talking about the new earth and talking about going back to when we were one with God. This is kind of sharing that we had a native state that we lived in all these 7 planes of existence, and we're going to go back to that. And that includes the beasts, that includes the birds, that includes the earth. So earth is renewing itself. It is being redeemed, so that the goal is to have God on earth and heaven on earth, because that's what it was before. And we allowed ourselves to fall away from what was natural to us originally. But I think we're getting back to remembering. So yeah, that's the summary of that chapter. And it's something to definitely reflect on when it comes to, I guess, visualizing this, because sometimes these are hard to visualize, and that's kind of just how they were created. And the Buddhist priests accepted Jesus for his wisdom. And so we're going to move on to chapter 33. Jesus teaches the common people at a spring, tells them how to attain unto happiness, relates the parable of the rocky field and the hidden treasure. In silent meditation, Jesus sat beside a flowing spring. It was a holy day, and many people of the servant castes were near the place. And Jesus saw the hard-drawn lines of toil on every brow, in every hand. There was no look of joy in any face. Not one of all the group could think of anything but toil. And Jesus spoke to one and said, "Why are you all so sad? Have you no happiness in life?" The man replied, "We scarcely know the meaning of that word. We toil to live and hope for nothing else but toil, and bless the day when we can cease our toil and lay us down to rest in Buddha's city of the dead." And Jesus' heart was stirred with pity and with love for these poor toilers. And he said, "Toil should not make a person sad. Men should be happiest when they toil. When hope and love are back of toil, then all of life is filled with joy and peace. And this is heaven. Do you not know that such a heaven is for you?" The man replied, "Of heaven we have heard, but then it is so far away, and we must live so many lives before we can reach that place." And Jesus said, "My brother, man, your thoughts are wrong. Your heaven is not far away, and it is not a place of metes and bounds, is not a country to be reached. It is a state of mind. God never made a heaven for man. He never made a hell. We are creators, and we make our own. Now, cease to seek for heaven in the sky. Just open up the windows of your hearts And like a flood of light, a heaven will come and bring a boundless joy. Then toil will be no cruel task. The people were amazed and gathered close to hear this strange young master speak, imploring him to tell them more about the Father God, about the heaven that men can make on earth, about the boundless joy. And Jesus spoke a parable. He said, "A certain man possessed a field. The soil was hard and poor. By constant toil, he scarcely could provide enough of food to keep his family from want. One day, a miner who could see beneath the soil in passing on his way saw this poor man in his unfruitful field. He called the weary toiler and he said, 'My brother, know you not that just below the surface of your barren field rich treasures lie concealed? You plow and sow and reap in scanty way, and day by day you tread upon a mine of gold and precious stones. This wealth lies not upon the surface of the ground, but if you will dig away the rocky soil and delve down deep into the earth, you need no longer till the soil for naught.' The man believed. 'The miner surely knows,' he said, 'and I will find the treasures hidden in my field.' And then he dug away the rocky soil, and deep down in the earth he found a mine of gold. And Jesus said, 'The sons of men are toiling hard on desert plains and burning sands and rocky soils, are doing what their fathers did, not dreaming they can do aught else. Behold, a master comes and tells them of a hidden wealth, that underneath the rocky soil of carnal things are treasures that no man can count, that in the heart the richest gems abound, that he who wills may open the door and find them all.' And then the people said, 'Make known to us the way, that we may find the wealth that lays within the heart.' And Jesus opened up the way. The toiler saw another side of life, and toil became a joy." Chapter 33. Seeing as that one is a parable, you can definitely receive your own reflection based off of that story that he shared. But pretty much what I got from it was that these people saw only work and did not see the value of the work that they were doing. And they only saw work as something that needed to be done because their fathers did it. And Jesus told them that through a parable, that their work can be seen as something deeper if they look into their hearts. And what I got from it was that if we work with our heart in it, or we do something that we love, something that's real for us, something that's true for us, then we will find joy in that work rather than sadness. And I think a lot of people these days are having that revelation for themselves and realizing that just working for money is not something that brings joy. It's not something that collectively brings us joy necessarily. It brings us the things that we need to take care of our families, but I know a lot of people who work a lot and still feel that they don't have enough, even to take care of their own families or themselves. And what a lot of people are learning is that money is energy. And if you're doing the things that you love, the carnal things that sometimes we have to do, that hard work doesn't necessarily have to be a result of just doing, but it could really teach you. You can learn through work. It's almost like choose your struggles, choose the struggles that you want to have, because we're all going to struggle. We're all going to have roadblocks. We're all going to have things that try to stop us, people that try to dim our light. And it's up to us, because we do have control and ownership of our lives, to choose the ways in which we want to struggle based on doing the things you love. Because I would, for example, would much rather struggled to learn how to be a better yoga instructor and share my teachings and use the power of my voice and go through those challenges than challenging myself to figure out how a computer is working on the inside. Like there's things that some people love and some things that people don't. And there's some things you might end up doing just because you need that money. But when you love to do something, the money will always follow. And so do amazing opportunities and amazing connections and interactions as well that are much more than what you may see on the surface. So yeah, I'll move on from that. Chapter 34. Got 2 more. So stick with me. The Jubilee in Capavisto. The Jubilee in Capavisto. Jesus teaches in the plaza, and the people are astonished. He relates the parable of the unkept vineyard and the vine dresser. The priests are angered by his words. No surprise. Okay. It was a gala day in sacred Capavisto. A throng of Buddhist worshippers had met to celebrate a jubilee. And priests and masters from all parts of India were there. They taught, but they embellished little truth with many words. And Jesus went into an ancient plaza and taught. He spoke of Father, Mother, God. He told about the brotherhood of life. The priests and all the people were astounded at his words and said, "Is this not Buddha come again in flesh? No other one could speak with such simplicity and power." And Jesus spoke a parable. He said, "There was a vineyard all unkept. The vines were high, the growth of leaves and branches great. The leaves were broad and shut the sunlight from the vines. The grapes were sour and few and small. The pruner came. With his sharp knife, he cut off every branch, and not a leaf remained, just root and stalk and nothing more. The busy neighbors came with one accord and were amazed, and said to him who pruned, 'You foolish man, the vineyard is despoiled. Such desolation. There is no beauty left, and when the harvest time shall come, the gatherers will find no fruit.' The pruner said, 'Content yourselves with what you think, and come again at harvest time and see.' And when the harvest time came on, the busy neighbors came again. They were surprised. The naked stalks had put forth branch and leaf, and heavy clusters of delicious grapes weighed every branch to earth. The gatherers rejoiced as, day by day, they carried the rich fruitage to the press. Behold, the vineyard of the Lord, the earth is spread with human vines. The gorgeous forms and rites of men are branches, and their words are leaves. And these have grown so great that sunlight can no longer reach the heart. There is no fruit. Behold, the pruner comes, and with a two-edged knife he cuts away the branches and the leaves of words, and naught is left but unclothed stalks of human life. The priests and they of pompous show rebuke the pruner and would stay him in his work. They see no beauty in the stalks of human life, no promises of fruit. The harvest time will come, and they who scorn the pruner will look on again and be amazed, for they will see the human stalks that seemed so lifeless, bending low with precious fruit. And they will hear the harvesters rejoice because the harvest is so great. The priests were not well pleased with Jesus' words, and they rebuked him not. They feared the multitude. Chapter 34. So he pretty much, Jesus, used a parable to say that the men are the branches. The forms of men and rights of men are the branches. Words are leaves, and they've grown so great that there is no fruit. So they're saying that he is saying that the aesthetics, the rituals, the things that were kind of overpowering the men at that time, because these were the things that kept them in a space of believing that they were doing things that God wanted them to do because the priest told them to, it actually yielded no fruit into the people's lives. And the pruner came, and Jesus is referring to himself as the pruner and saying that he was the one who is cutting away these words, cutting away these rites, cutting away these rituals and traditions, and waiting for the next harvest through his words, with his new words for the human life. And in the next harvest, that those words that he had given to humanity yielded a beautiful harvest, a new life, a better life. And it was seen through the harvesters. The fruit of their lives was seen and known and obvious. And so he's pretty much saying, like, you know, you can take what you've been told, or you can take what is truth, which is also what he is sharing, what he got from God and brought down here. And you can take his words, or you can take their words, and you can yield no fruit because it's covered and overpowered and shadowed, or you can take my fruit, my truth, test it out, and see what fruit is yielded from that in your own life. And I definitely encourage you to do the same. Take the things and the lessons that you receive in your life from source, and every corner of the earth that you receive those messages from, and test them out in your own life and see the fruit that comes from it. And you'll know, because you're also were given your intuition to guide you through that as well, and your connection to source. Last chapter. Also, feel free to share anything in the comments before I move forward. We see these in like less than an hour, so I think it's pretty good. I'm also going to work this week on going back to my old videos and putting in those little cards so that you can easily go back and know when I am starting another chapter, because I was just thinking about that this week. People would try to go back, so I'm gonna make it easy for everybody. All right, chapter 35, and this is where we'll close out section 6. Jesus and Vidyapati consider the needs of the incoming age of the world. The Indian sage and Jesus often met and talked about the needs of nations and of men, about the sacred doctrines, forms, and rites best suited to the coming age. One day they sat together in a mountain pass, and Jesus said, "The coming age will surely not require priests and shrines and sacrifice of life. There is no power in sacrifice of beast or bird to help a man to holy life." And Vidyapati said, "All forms and rites are symbols of the things that men must do within the temple of the soul. The Holy One requires man to give his life in willing sacrifice for men, and all the so-called offerings on altars and on shrines that have been made since time began were made to teach man how to give himself to save his brother man. For man can never save himself except he lose his life in saving other men. The perfect age will not require forms and rites and carnal sacrifice. The coming age is not the perfect age, and men will call for object lessons and symbolic rites. And in the great religion, you shall introduce to men some simple rites of washings and remembrances will be required. But cruel sacrifice of animals and birds the gods require not." And Jesus said, "Our God must loathe the tinselled show of priests and priestly things. When men array themselves in showy garbs to indicate that they are servants of the gods and strut about like gaudy birds, to be admired by men because of piety or any other thing, the Holy One must surely turn away in sheer disgust. All people are alike the servants of our Father God, our kings and priests. Will not the coming age demand complete destruction of the priestly caste, as well as every other caste, and inequality among the sons of men? And Vidyapati said, the coming age is not the age of spirit life, and men will pride themselves in wearing priestly robes and chanting pious chants to advertise themselves as saints. The simple rites that you will introduce will be extolled by those who follow you, until the sacred service of the age will far outshine in gorgeousness the priestly service of the Brahmic age. This is a problem men must solve. The perfect age will come when every man will be a priest, and men will not array themselves in special garb to advertise their piety. Chapter 35. So pretty much, Jesus wants to end this section with sharing that this is just like the main aspect of Jesus' advocacy is the issue in the Old Testament was having that middleman. Man, priest, God. It even got to a point sometimes of being woman, man, priest, God. And Jesus's big thing is human equality. And I think even what he's sharing here is also reflected on what we see today, because they're talking about the coming age. So they were talking about what was needed for the age that was after him. And he says that even during that time, the coming age is not going to be the perfect age, because priests are still going to walk around in these aesthetics of looking godly and not actually being godly, and putting themselves in authoritative spaces above others, and just lack of human equality. And when we as men collectively remember that we are kings, queens, priests, whatever you want to see and deem as royalty, the highest, the most authoritative, that is where the perfect man and perfect humanity comes in, is when we self-govern ourselves, and we also pair that with knowledge of source, and living in harmony with source, and giving our earthly lives to living in harmony and serving one another. And if we're all serving one another, then there's no way that anyone is lacking in anything. And it's up to us to do that. It's not up to us to wait for someone to save us and do that. It's up to us to come together as a whole and do that. So that's a great place to end. Something to reflect on throughout this week. We are here to serve each other, and we are here to make each other's lives better. And I know sometimes the smaller things, the petty things, the things that are thrown in our face can get in the way of that, and can help lead us to more separation of each other. There's so many reasons why we can look at someone else and think that we are different or better, or just on a different plane of existence or a different frequency. And it's up to us to cast those thoughts away and remind ourselves that we're actually all connected and much more similar than we think. And also coming all from the same source, regardless of how different. And that we also have the power to govern ourselves. And I really loved the laws of Ma'at, if that's something you're familiar with. In that civilization and time, they self-governed themselves based on what they believed to bring harmony amongst their culture, their environment, their earth, their God. And I think that we can do that too. And we just have to start in our own home, this, and then begin to express that outwardly to everyone that we come into contact with, alongside the plants, the birds, and the beasts. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it and you made it this far. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. I can't wait to see you again next Sunday. Peace.